Hi, it's Sterling Marn. I am back here with a mission that has given me a lot of trouble. I It's a mission with one large battle cruiser, and then there was some assorted frigates. I was able to deal with all the frigates just fine, and the battle cruiser doesn't do a ton of damage, but unfortunately, he does have a huge tank and a heavy capacitor neutralizer. What this means is that I simply just wasn't doing enough damage to get through him, and at the same time he was eating up my capacitor very quickly, which eventually shut off my adaptive invulnerability fields, which provide me my resists, which was then allowing him to actually start doing a lot of damage to me. So I could have sat there all day, though, even if he wasn't killing off my tank, and I just would never have been able to get through him. It looks like he had very high resists. I have very bursty damage with the light missiles as opposed to, say, autocannons. I'm doing all of my damage at once, and then there's a long pause while the launchers load up their next missile. So that means I should have been seeing a large dent in his armor, followed by seeing it get repaired. But I was only seeing a very small dent in his armor, so I don't think he's repairing a lot. He just had very good resists for the kinetic damage that I was doing. So I've gone and bought some new missiles. I'm not going to try to pronounce that. Moilinir? I don't know how to pronounce that. But they do EM damage, which after reading online is his weakness, and I'm hoping is going to provide me the additional DPS that I need, actual DPS, to get through his tank. I also swapped out my two light drones, which I was going to use to deal with fast frigates and such, with a single medium drone, and specifically an infiltrator, which also does EM damage. Hoping all of that combined is going to give me the DPS I need to break through him. Since he is a battle cruiser, the light drones really would have done just nothing to him, whereas the medium drone is still going to be so much faster than him. It's going to be able to orbit him no problem. That I think this might just be the setup that I need to get through his tank. I did read a lot online, a lot of people complaining about this mission. I like that there is finally a challenge. I wish that more of these missions were making me think this way. The reward is really no better. I think it was like 380,000, which is maybe slightly better than what I've been seeing for the combined reward. So we see the wrecks of the ships that I've already taken out, and then our battle cruiser here, Kristen Parthis. He actually has no bounty on him either, which is disappointing. That if they're going to give me such a tough target, I'd really have liked it if I got a little bit more for him. So I'm going to burn into range, and that should be close enough there. And I'll start hitting him with these EM missiles, and we'll see what they do. Now, before his shield went right down, he's definitely an armor-tanked NPC. The group hit him for 342, so yeah, we did a pretty good chunk on his shield, and that's not going to repair, so... And this is going to be actually slower on the shield than I was before. Actually, no, it should be pretty quick. Shields are generally poor at handling EM. Now that he is attacking me, I can go ahead and launch my drone, and we'll sick my drone after him. Oh, I did forget these guys. We see he does have that uh, cap neutralizer. It has a range of 25k, which is about the same as my missiles. If I had a little better range, I could try and just stay out of his range. But unfortunately, my weapons and his neutralizer are about that same range. When we see that after he repped there still is some damage left, so I might be able to break his tank. We're going to see here. Fortunately, I'm not doing damage very quickly, but my cap is going down very quickly, and he is putting a nice dent in my shield. Now, he's also doing EM and explosive damage, which are my most poorly tanked damage types. So if I'm doing good progress on him and it's just my tank that's not holding out, I could swap out these adaptive invulnerability fields, which handle all damage types, and swap them for one EM and one explosive hardener, which would provide me a better setup overall. But it's starting to look like it's not going to matter. He's going through my shield far faster, and actually he's all the way up to 98% armor. So it looks like even though I did switch to a better damage type and I am doing a better job and I've got my drone on him, it is not actually going to be enough to crack his tank. I'm going to go ahead and bring back my drone and align to the station that I'm going to dock at. And there goes the rest of my capacitor. And my drone is scooped, so we will go ahead and warp and dock to get our capacitor and shield back. But it looks like we are not going to be able to take him out at this point. Now, I do have some options. I could go out and buy better light missile launchers. I'm currently using the upgraded Malkuth. That there are other light missile launchers that are named that would do even more. Arbalast being the top named missile launcher that I'd be looking at. I could perhaps get faction ammo. So a prototype Arbalast light missile launcher would provide me a nice DPS boost. I'm sure I could check in EFT and look at some exact numbers to see if it would perhaps be enough to crack through. But as you can see, even if I'm willing to go system to system shopping around, I'm still going to end up at close to a million apiece by the time I replace all of my missile launchers, and I currently only have 5 million ISK, so that would pretty much bankrupt me right there. I could also look into rigs. Rigs will boost your damage, but again, I simply don't have the ISK uh, for that type of thing at this point, being a new player here, and I don't want to cheat and transfer money off of one of my main tunes, as tempting as that can be in these types of situations. I really want to keep this experience going of just having to scrape by. But if we look into ship modifications and rigs, actually I probably don't have the skills for the rigs, so this probably isn't an option. But rigs are something that you can put on your ship. In this case, I'm in a cruiser, so I'd be using medium rigs. Most ships will allow you to use 3 appropriately sized rigs. And I would be looking at the Warhead Calification Catalyst, which is a 10% damage boost. There is always a drawback to, I believe, every rig. In this case, it is increased CPU requirements for launchers. You can look for the specifics at 10% drawback. So each of my missile launchers' CPU usage would go up by 10%. That really hasn't been a problem on my fitting. CPU hasn't been a major issue, so I don't think that would stop me from being able to use them. Higher rigging skills. In this case, I would need jury rigging level 3 and then launcher rigging level 1. The more launcher rigging skill I have, the less the drawback would affect me. I believe getting it all the way to 5 reduces it to like 20% or 50%. I'd have to look. Actually, we can look at that right now. 10% reduction in drawback. So if we got it all the way to 5, it would. Now, if we had that all the way to 5, then our rig that we're looking at now would only increase the CPU usage by 5%, I think is how they apply the math, but sometimes that can vary a little. I won't get into that discussion. But that gives you an idea of rigs and skills that are necessary for them. The problem again, though, I'm looking at 3 million ISK, which I guess actually would be affordable, but it's more of a skill issue there, that by the time I could train jury rigging level 3 and get the missile launcher skill and go and buy it, I can also by then just run some other missions to get the money for the better launchers. I've got a lot of different options in how I want to go about this, but it looks like at this point I cannot continue in the epic storyline unless I were to find somebody to help me. I could ask in local. I'm betting that there's a lot of people frequently asking in local for help on this one. The problem is, for all that person knows, I'm trying to trap them, or they could end up, you know, trying to screw me over and attacking me instead of the target once we gang up. So a lot of risk and reward, a lot of different options. I may go ahead and just abandon the storyline arc temporarily. I could just go and get myself a level 1 Caldari agent and start running Caldari missions. I was hoping to avoid that because right after this mission, I'm really near the end of this arc, I get to choose which faction I want to work with for the rest of these. I was going to choose Caldari, and then at the end of that string of missions, I get a huge faction standing bonus, which I was hoping would get me high enough that I could go straight to a level 2 Caldari agent with my cruiser here, but I don't know if that's going to be an option. So I'm going to take stock of my options, maybe play around in EFT, see if I have some good ways of beating this guy. But it's definitely interesting for me that this has gone from a total cakewalk on these missions. I've just been knocking out mission after mission, barely paying attention, to all of a sudden having one where I just cannot, with my current skills and ship and equipment and money, cannot beat this guy by myself. That's quite a jump in difficulty, which I think is interesting. Definitely it's going to keep me thinking and has added a whole new dynamic to the game, I guess. So, I think that's it for this video while I play around offline to figure out what I'm going to do. I hope to see you next video where I will hopefully either have a solution for this mission or I will move on to some other task while my skills increase. I hope to see you then.